Hi, my name is Jack Manzi. I'm a director and cinematographer, and I also run Silver Island Studios. We produce a variety of content with a narrative focus, whether it be branded, documentaries, or feature-length films. In this demo, I'm going to look at a short film I wrote and shot a few years ago called The Alp. I wasn't completely satisfied with the job I did when I graded the film, so I've decided to recolor it, using all the tools Colourlab has made available. The Alp is a psychological horror based on German folklore, and it tells the story of a woman haunted by trauma from her past. When considering inspirations for the look, I used 3 movies as references. Black Swan because of its deep blacks and rich colors, Antichrist because it's set in a similar forested location and I love the colors in the foliage, and Cries and Whispers, which has a similar dread-filled mood, and I love the strong contrast on the nighttime close-ups. It makes for a very dramatic image. That being said, I'm not trying to match the exact look of these reference images, but rather trying to match the mood that these movies evoked, taking pieces I like from each one. I start building a look by bringing a couple clips into a timeline. It's best to have a variety of test clips that are representative of the various lighting conditions you would encounter when shooting. Here I have a day exterior, a day interior, and 2 night interior shots. First, I'll group my clips based on what camera or format they were shot on. All of these clips were shot on a C200 using C-Log 3 and Canon's Cine Gamut, so I add them all to a group called C-Log 3. Then I move to the pre-clip node tree. Normally I would have noise reduction on the first node, but for the sake of performance, I'll leave it turned off for now. I convert all my footage into RE color space using LookDesigner. A number of plugins don't support Canon Log, and it makes it easy to know that all of my footage, no matter what camera, once in the clip node tree is in the RE color space. So I'll select the correct input profile, which in this case is Canon C-Log 3 Cine Gamut, and the output profile as RE-Log C. And I'll leave everything else disabled. And I can even turn on the bypass just so it's especially clear that this node is just being used for an input transform and not actually adding any color. Next I add the GrainLab plugin. I make sure the camera selection is set to RE-Log C. I like this Kodak 35mm option. It adds a nice texture back to the image after using noise reduction. It's hard to see now, but I'll come back to this node once I add an ODT. Now that I've added my noise reduction, color space conversion, and grain, I'm going to jump into the timeline node tree and start building the look. In the timeline node tree, I add a node and drag in LookDesigner. I set my input profile as RE-Log C and output to 709. Now this footage is converted to 709 with no look applied yet. I'll grab a still to compare to later. Next thing I do in LookDesigner is choose a negative stock. For this project, I'm using Fuji Eterna 8543 Vivid because that's what Black Swan was shot on. Next I pick a print stock for both contrast and palette. I decided on Kodak 2393 because Kodak describes it as having richer blacks and more saturated vivid colors. When I read their claim that the images snap and sizzle on the screen, I knew that this was the stock for me. Next, I enable post-processing and turn up the film print emulation intensity. I think this desaturates the image in a really nice natural way. At this point, I usually like to review the choices I've made so far, and the bypass options make it really easy to do that quickly. I can see that the negative option is adding a little bit of yellow throughout and boosting the colors in the red dress. The print stock is adding a little bit of warmth back into Martina's skin tones. This all looks good so far. I can compare this to the 709 no-look image and see how the options we've chosen are working together. Now that I have a solid baseline image, I'll use one of the most powerful tools in LookDesigner, the subtractive color controls. I like using the subtractive color last to dial in any final tweaks to the look. I boost all three channels a little to start, which adds a nice richness to the image. I'll add a little more magenta, and then put in some yellow, and this is looking really nice. Now I can check the other clips to see how the subtractive color is affecting them. This clip, for example, looks way too saturated, but I don't want to overcompensate for this one clip in the look, because I know I can just adjust that on a clip-to-clip basis. And if you look at the other clips, they look pretty good for the most part. Now that I feel good about this look, I can export the LUT in whatever way I want. Canon to 709 for in-camera use, or ARRI to ARRI without the ODT. Now that I've got the look built and the 709 transform on, I'll jump back to the pre-clipped tree and show what the grain is doing. I'll turn the grain off so I can fully show its effect, and I'll turn the noise reduction back on. I have a profile loaded for the C200 in this noise reduction plugin. We can see it's doing a good job, but also smoothing the skin and the entire image a little bit too much. But with a little grain, we can re-add some texture to the image. This is why I like to have GrainLab in my pre-clip, so I can adjust the noise reduction and the grain side by side. This grain looks a little heavy, so I'll reduce its presence with the controls. The spark controls the highlight grain. The body is where most of the grain is, in the midtones of the image, and the base controls the largest grains in the shadows. This gives me a lot of flexibility to dial the grain in exactly how I want it. To demonstrate how I use Colourlab AI, I have a timeline with the scene loaded in it. These shots are in the same group, C-Log3, and I have my look and ODT in the LookDesigner node at the timeline level. At the clip level, I use this custom node tree which works well with Colourlab and saves me time. Right now, everything's disabled, but I have the nodes I commonly use preloaded here. I have this node tree saved as a power grade and exported as a DRX file. Now I'll reset this and move into Colourlab. In Colourlab, I open a new project. In the project settings, I can load my custom node tree and assign which nodes the IDT, CDL, ShowLut, and ODT should be exported to. For this node tree, I send the IDT to node 1, the CDL to node 2, the ShowLut to node 3, and the ODT to node 8. All I have to do is click Resolve Fetch and it automatically imports the sequence. It detects that this footage was shot on C-Log 3 and correctly sets that as our IDT. If I had more than one scene in this sequence, I can quickly break them up using the marker tools here or by clicking M. Next, I'll apply the show LUT I built and exported earlier. I click Import LUTs and select the correct settings. I can apply any notes or tags to identify it later. Once it's imported, the LUT will work on any footage regardless of what it was originally made for. So I can build a library of the best LUTs from a variety of sources. Now I can compare the different images using 1 to show the long image, 2 to show it converted to 709 with no look applied, 3 to show it with the show look, and 4 will show the final image once we've made any tweaks in the printer lights and color wheels. The key R sets this clip as the reference for the scene. In the printer lights, I'll boost the exposure by half a stop. I'll take a couple points out of the blue as well. The contrast looks a little strong, so I'll drop that a little, and take a point out of the green as well. I'll drop the saturation slightly too. I'll bring up the shadows with lift a little bit, and drop the gain slightly. These controls are so smooth it makes it really easy to use with just a mouse. I can cycle through the steps again to see the progress. 709, the show LUT applied, and the final tweaks. Now I'm ready to use the AI engine to match the shots. I click A and it goes to work. I can look at the different match options by clicking Enter, and I can choose whichever looks best for each clip. Once I've made the selections, all I have to do to get this back to resolve is click Resolve Push, and then magically my node tree is populated with the AI match settings. My custom node tree has been added to all of my clips in Resolve. All of the adjustments are in the CDL node, like I specified. The IDT node is disabled because I have an IDT in the pre-clip LookDesigner node, and the show LUT and ODT are disabled because I have them at my timeline level. So I'm just using the AI engine with my existing node tree to save a bunch of time on matching. From here I can make any final tweaks and adjustments and start dialing in the image using whatever tools in Resolve I need. You can imagine how much time this would save on a full-scale project rather than just a few clips. As you can see from this demo, LookDesigner, GrainLab, and Colourlab AI have become indispensable tools in my workflow that both save me time and improve the overall quality of my images.